Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Just Make It Pretty podcast. Today, I have a special guest with me to talk about how storytelling will align your teams, change your trajectory in your career, and just how to use it as emotional connection with other people. I'm so excited to talk about this. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Just Make It Pretty podcast, the slightly unhinged marketing podcast for home builders and beyond. I'm your host, Sarah Haynes, also known as the Pixel Wizard, and my goal is to tackle the tough stuff that goes in behind the scenes in marketing and offer actionable tips, creative insights, and a little bit of humor to spark some creativity. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get started. So without further ado, my special guest is Craig Neal. He is the area sales manager for Toll Brothers, and I am just so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, thank you, Sarah. And I hope you've got subtitles for the accent. I am from Scotland. I'll try and speak really slow so everybody understands me. But if not, you can throw the subtitles on. You're an AI master, so we'll be good to go. So I'm really happy to be on here. Thank you for inviting me. And again, as you see, you've been to a lot of my IBS talks, and my passion certainly is in my storytelling. I'm not the person to be out there showing you slide decks and Excel spreadsheets and data and numbers. That's just not who I am. I'm excited to talk about that with you.
Awesome. Yeah, no, you are the very first person that comes to mind when I think about great storytellers. So this is going to be a really great conversation. But before we get into it, I want to talk about you a little bit. I want to hear, how did you get into this industry? For those of us who don't know you, which I'm sure is not very many people, but for those that don't know you, how did you get into the industry? What keeps you passionate about home building?
So mine's actually a really funny story. So I ended up, I used to work in private yachts. That's a whole other podcast. And that was a lot of fun. But I met my now wife, and we decided to leave yachting and start a family. We're in South Florida. We had our first child in South Florida, and we didn't want to raise her there. So we wanted to move closer to her family in Ohio. So I was looking at all these different options, and I had a connection through my sister. It was for a project management role for a company in Nashville, Tennessee. So I applied. It was a healthcare compliance company, work from home job, which I thought would be amazing. Working from home turns out being an extrovert, that's not amazing. But I worked for this company, and I remember having my first meeting. We'd already sold the house in Florida. We had the moving truck packed. Everyone was getting ready to go to Nashville, and I had my first meeting like 2 days before we were leaving. And one of the ladies in the meeting was saying, "Oh, I'm moving to California," and I was like, "Oh, it's a shame. I was looking forward to working with you." And she said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, you're moving to California." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, that's the best thing about our jobs. They're like remote jobs." And I was like, "Oh, I missed that part of the memo." So I'd already planned to move to Nashville, thinking that's where my job was, and I could literally have moved anywhere. So we ended up we'll give it a shot. So we went to Nashville, and we're looking for homes, and ended up buying a new construction home. And actually, story on that, because I tell stories. So when I was in the first home we bought, I had my newborn Eloise, and she was about a month old. And I remember my wife was at work, and I'll never forget this. The plumbing broke under the sink, and I remember sitting on the floor cross-legged with my iPad here and my daughter here, and I was rocking her as I was looking on YouTube, like, how do you fix a plumbing leak? And I'm like doing this, doing that, and it was like super stressful. She's crying. I'm trying to find this video. I'm trying to fix the plumbing. So when we're looking for a home in Nashville, the agent said, "Have you ever looked at new construction?" And we were like, "No, I mean, I'm from Scotland. It's not really a thing in Scotland. Like, new construction's like 70 years old. You know what I mean? That's new construction in Scotland." So yeah, and then as soon as she brought up new construction, we went in there, and the consultant at the time, and Jacob Reynolds, super a good friend still, started talking about the warranties, and I was like, this is for me. So it was that one moment, that emotional moment that was so powerful to remember, that triggered with me that warranty, perfect, I want to do it. So we ended up in new construction, became really good friends with the sales consultants. Turned out work from home was not something that was aligned with who I am, as anybody that knows me would understand why. And the company got bought over by Meritage Homes, and they were expanding, and that was that. He said, "Craig, you'd be great in this role." And I applied, and I got the job, and that was it. It was a pretty I randomly fell into new construction. It was not a plan, but again, I've never looked back. The emotions, the stories. I mean, when I was selling homes, it was the connections I made with the homeowners. I just became great friends with them. It wasn't a transaction for me. It was truly like building those relationships and serving the customer that came in, and continuing that through. And I've still got some of my best friends are still people I sold homes to. And I've had, I think, like 5 or 6 people I sold homes to now have stayed with my parents in Scotland. Like that's how close I get with these people, with other people. And my passion now is being in leadership, is serving my team, and it's looking out for them, and how can I make their lives better? How can I help them in their day to day? How can I make sure they're still enjoying their job and still enjoying their home life, and giving them that balance and just really being there for them? That's 100% my passion, is the people. I mean, I just love working for my team. I just love them so much.
That's so cool. I mean, I've heard a lot of your stories because like I said, like I've been to a lot of your IBS talks, but I just you make such a clear picture every time you tell a story. I'm like, I can see you sitting at that, like at your like rocking the baby. Oh my gosh. And we've all been there. So that's so cool. And as someone who's worked remote though for the last over a decade, I don't get it. It's so nice. I'm sitting here right now in my pajama bottoms.
Yep. Yep. Oh, I get it. Good for you. Yeah, I get energy from talking to people. So that's what fuels me. When I was working from home, I was like best friends with the Walmart cashiers because I would go just to buy something, just have somebody to talk to. So it's like,
Yeah, no, I get it. Not everyone's like me. That's so funny. So let's talk about this emotional picture that you create. That story was sitting at the sink. I have gone to your talks and you tell like similar stories each time, and I've never seen somebody be able to make an entire room cry over and over and over. Oh, with the same, I have cried multiple times, you telling the same stories, and I'm like, I've heard this one before, and I'm still crying. So, like, how do you think that like emotion plays a role in like your storytelling? How did you kind of build that? Like, how do you do it?
so for me, it's just truly accepting that I guess I'm extremely flawed, and I believe everybody is. But the majority of people don't want to accept that they're flawed. So it's hard to tie into that emotion because then it's accepting that you're not perfect. And everybody has, and people feel that you have to come across as being the best and perfect in order to succeed. And I think it's just having that self-awareness and belief in yourself that it doesn't matter. And again, my biggest thing that I live and die by is failing forward. I mean, that is just what I do. It's like we're all going to fail, but how do you recover from that? How do you pick yourself up? What do you learn from that? So it's really just being, it's vulnerability. Is like I fully embrace my vulnerability, and I will talk about anything to anybody, because the last thing I want to do is have gone through an experience and it hurt me emotionally, physically, progression in career. I mean, there's so many things that I've done wrong in my life that if it's happened to me, if I can use that to stop it happening to somebody else, I want to. I don't want to waste it. I mean, if it sucked for me. So it's like, I don't want to waste that and make everybody else suck. So the more people I can share my failures with, hopefully the more people's lives I can change for the better, because then maybe they don't feel where I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not all of your stories are failures though. Like you share a lot of just like vulnerable things, I think, and it brings people closer to you because we've all been there. We've all felt these things, whether we're willing to admit that we're flawed or not. Like we on the inside, we're like, oh yeah, no, I felt that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't need people to admit it. I just need them to feel it. And that's what I'm looking for. I need people to when they're sitting in an audience or listening to me speak, like I want them to be able to connect with what I'm actually trying to teach by tying it back to an emotional connection they have. So it's no different than me rocking my daughter Eloise and the iPad. That emotional connection was what tied me to buying that new construction home. You've heard the story about me, my daughter's dance recital. And so again, that one there, it, that was one that like broke my heart, obviously. When, again, long story short, for the audience that hasn't heard it, I basically ultimately missed my daughter's first dance recital because I was in the model home thinking I was going to get a sale and I'd get there on time, and I didn't get there on time. And again, that was the moment in my life that changed everything. And instead of being purely focused on being successful in work, it was being successful in life and making sure my family was the priority and not my work. Thinking work was making my family priority, and it really wasn't. It was a complete backwards. So it's having stories like that and just allowing people to know if those happen to you, it's fine, but you got to learn from it. You've really got to learn from those emotional stories and those emotional points in your life. But for me to stand up there and preach about something, like they're not going to buy into it unless they buy into what I'm trying to say. And the way I try and do that is by finding that emotional connection within themselves to then allow them to give themselves the grace to sit to believe that what I'm showing them or suggesting to do is something that would work for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I think we talk about storytelling a lot, and especially in marketing. I'm in marketing podcast. Like, we're always being like, we have to build a story and it should be in your copy and it should be in your social posts and all of that. But we don't necessarily think about how much that also affects like sales and like having these similar stories for like companies. So how do you use that skill that you have in your role, and like what impact does it have?
So again, with my team tells me things that I don't think they would tell many managers. I really create a safe place for them to come and speak to me. And it's whether it's emotionally, whether it's again, like I will help people through physical changes in their life. I mean, I want them to be, because I truly believe, and this is like one of my mentors, Chad Sanchagrin, it's like you want to be the best version of yourself. So you have to be selfish. And the teachings that I'm learning and investing the time in myself, I want to pass that down to other people. So by when people fail at work, I've done this for a long time, and being able to say, you've not failed, like you've learned a lesson. This is an opportunity, and this is what happened to me, and this is how I overcame it. And I'll tell them the full story. I'm not sugarcoating it. I'm not trying to pretend that, oh, I'm the manager, so I know what I'm doing. I'm personally, I've got no idea what I'm doing half the time. Do you know what I mean? Which is why we hire amazing people. It's all about delegation. But you've got to have that trust to with them, to share these stories with them so that they can feel safe to share them to you. So again, as a very vulnerable manager, I share everything with my team. Again, from a personal side, and I know that's not comfortable for a lot of people, but by doing that, it allows them to do the same thing with me. So if they're having relationship issues, if they're having issues with their kids, if they're having health issues, if they're having financial issues, the majority of people that I have on my team will tell me those, and they'll speak to me about them, which then allows me to give them grace, which allows to take the stress off if sales are down. So it's really allows them to understand that I see them as a person and not as an employee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which everyone loves to feel like that. No one wants to feel like a number, on a spreadsheet somewhere. Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Do you encourage your team, or do you coach your team to also start implementing more storytelling like in their role, or like with your buyers or like their coworkers?
Yeah, so certainly from a sales standpoint, I think it's very important. So it's finding the relatable issue, or the relatable thing you have with any customer that comes through. So as you're doing your discovery at the beginning, like you want to find something, is what I always say. Is the question I always have them ask is like, do you currently live in the area? So because it does two things. Is like if they say yes, it's like great. Where do you live? Who do you know? And you maybe find a connection that way. And if it's no, it's oh, where are you moving from? And if it's New York or wherever it is, oh, I've got a friend, so you find a connection there, or I've been there. So you find stories that allows it to open up. And most of those times it leads to a story. It's not just like, I know, oh, that's funny, I know John. It's, well, I know John through when I
Hmm.
used to play Pee Wee soccer or whatever it was with them. And so there's usually a story that goes along with that connection. So by getting them to kind of lean into the discovery to find the connection, and then there's usually a story there. And that story is what builds the trust because you have that emotional connection with them, because then they'll share their story of how they knew that person or how they ended up moving to the area. So there's always, if they relocate to Charlotte, for example, I relocated to Charlotte. Why did you relocate? Oh, well, I had young children and I was doing this. Well, I've got young children. And you have these stories that you align with each other, and you'll find something along the way that then connects you on an emotional level with that customer, which then just makes it an experience and not a transaction.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you do that, and so when someone comes in, I guess like they've already kind of built a story around whether they've seen your marketing or they've read your website or whatever. And then they make this connection with your sales team. Is there any type of like continuity that you feel like has to happen there, where like you're part of this company, so like we're all telling the same stories, or like we're all like building the same brand? Do you What do you think about that?
So building the same brand, yes. Like I think the companies spend like millions of dollars creating the brand they want their company to be. So 100%, like we all stand by whatever brand of the company, like any company you're at, I
Yeah.
think you have to stand by the brand. You're there for a reason. You got to live and breathe it and buy into it. And if you don't leave, it's the wrong company for you. So, which is fine, but I think you have to believe in the brand itself and what it stands for, because the brand is the values. It's all the core values of whichever company you're at. So I think you have to do that. But in regards to the storytelling and the connection, absolutely not. And I will tell my whole team this: there's no right way to sell a home. Again, and I'll have people arguing with me on this, but you can go place these companies that have scripts, and these are the questions you should be asking and what you should be finding out. And I don't disagree that the information in those questions are things that you should be gathering, but every single person is different. Like every single person has a different personality. Like the way I sold homes, mine was all humor based. Like I was just joking with everybody and very laid back and having fun. And I had a partner at a time that was not that way, and he was just very transactional and very okay. So you're looking for this, and it wasn't that he was asking boring questions. It was just his personality. He was still creating a rapport with the customer. It was a completely different way. So I think the customer sees that, and this all comes back to vulnerability. Is like you have to be yourself. You have to be genuine when you're selling anything, because people will read it. I mean, your energy does not lie. So if you're trying to be somebody else, you're not going to come across as genuine, which means they're probably not going to buy from you. So if you try to sell like somebody else, you're going to fail because you're not that person. So
Hmm.
it's just not the way. So Brooke Jennings.
Yes, she's
Yes.
amazing.
So like Brooke's one of my close friends, and I used to laugh because if I ever tried to sell a home like she sold homes, I would be put in the cuckoo bin. Like I'm telling you, it is just like the things that she would like. Some of the things she would comment like ladies' shoes, and she was like, "Oh my!" And she's over the top Southern, and I was like, if I said that, it would sound so creepy, but it was so genuine for her, and
Yeah.
customers loved her because she was so genuine what she was. But if she tried to sound transactional, she would fail. She wouldn't sell homes because that's not who she is. So
Hmm.
I 100% believe in the brand has to be consistent because you are a brand for a company. But I also 100% believe that every single person is different. And from a coaching standpoint, you can't coach how to sell a home. You can coach each individual based on their personality traits and how they feel comfortable selling homes.
So you kind of alluded to it, but have you heard like pushback on that view? And if so, kind of why? Do people want to have that like everybody does it the same way? Or, what has your experience been?
Yeah, I've been at some places that they'll argue the consistency. So they want to have a consistent experience across every model people walk into. And I think that can be achieved from a brand standard.
Mhm.
But I don't know how, my argument is I don't know how you can be consistent in personalities, because unless you're hiring the same personality, it's not going to be achievable. I mean, you talk about the disc profiles and disc styles, and the majority of salespeople are I's, which is your emotional connection category. But there's still a lot of dominance, the D's and the C's, that are more of that analytical type that are also very successful as well. Trying to make an analytical person sell like an emotional person, that's just not, that's going to make them feel so uncomfortable. I mean, something I talked about in 2 years ago, I think it was at IBS, was the new generation, the workforce coming through. Like they want to be valued and appreciated for who they are, not who we expect them to be or who we want them to be. And that's huge. And I think so many people will hire people and then expect them to do this, but that's not who they are. Like, so if this person is going to be valued, it has to be for who they are right there and then, unapologetically them. And that's so yeah, that I do, I could, that's the feedback I've got and the pushback I've got from some people. And again, in how I perceive the best way to do it is, there's not a best way, there's the way I like doing it. No different than like culture. I've talked about culture a lot, and there's not a right culture. I definitely think there's a wrong culture, but
Yeah.
I don't think there's a right culture, because it's dependent on who those people are. And you could almost have like your company culture, but then you've got your subcultures, because your operational culture is going to be much different than your sales culture, than your production culture. And it's really making sure that the leadership team is understanding what each department values and buys into and creating that subculture within each department.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just don't
Yes.
see the construction team out wearing like Hawaiian grass skirts and leis and having a little party. I mean, like you put that in a sales team, oh my God, best time ever. But I just don't see the construction team doing that. So I mean, that's what people just think of like culture, and it's like it's going for happy hours and drinks and bowling and Hawaiian shirts and stuff. And that's not. I mean, it's you've got to be conscious of who is in that department or group of culture we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So basically what I'm hearing you saying, like on a company side and like a brand side, like aligning your team around like shared values and like the core values of the company rather than a message or like a this is what every person says or this is what every person does is going to be more successful in the way that you operate and the way that you're like recommending because you're able to connect better that way with not only like your buyers but like your internal team.
100%.
Yeah.
That's my belief.
Yeah. Well, I think if there's a lot of truth there, and there is, a lot of people that are like, we have this process and everything is the consistency thing is a real thing, but like people are not robots. And I feel like a lot of times, like we want everyone to be in these boxes. I see it a lot with like my kids at school. They're like, well, your kid has to sit right here and they have to do this exercise, just like each little kid in this row. And it's like, well, but that my daughter doesn't learn that way or, whatever. And that those kind of like things, it doesn't just stop at school, like it's easier if we were all in a box, but we're not.
Yeah,
So,
it's hard. And I remember one time I was with a consultant. This is years ago. I was with a company who did have a strict, yes, this question first, this question second, this question third. And I'll never forget this. She asked this question, and the customer gave her an answer that opened up a million follow-up questions and doors to walk through. And she literally said, okay, great. And then asked the next question. Like,
oh no.
because she, in her head, success for her was just going through and checking every single box because then that's what she'd been told to do. And it became, I was like, oh my gosh, that was just like a really, really emotional response they gave you. And you've just like completely dismissed it and moved on to something. The next question on the checkbox. And that was kind of like the moment for me that was like, yeah, I don't feel like this works. This was like earlier in my career. And I was like, this is not working for me. And again, that's why I think all the questions, again, these are all any of these scripts or questions at any company you're at, they're there for a reason because they have value.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that. So I believe that the majority of companies, all of their scripts, every single question is valid. But I think how those questions are asked and when they're asked can be completely different, or even if they need to be asked. That's the other thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, yeah, you don't have to go through the process. Like you ask a question and wherever that leads you, you follow that. You let the customer become, because again, the customer's telling their story. So you need to let them be the storyteller, and you're just helping navigate and direct them and guide them and wherever that story ends up, whether it's not purchasing a home or whether it's purchasing this floor plan or that floor plan or that home site, the story they're telling you gets you there. But if you make it a question, they're not telling a story, they're just answering yes or no.
Yeah. Well, it's so it would feel so dismissive to be in that. I just told you this personal thing and you're like, okay, so next. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
that's
You don't need
exactly
to
what it
know
felt like
me.
to me. Yeah, I was like, what just happened there? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So I have another question. This is kind of like for leaders.
mhm.
And you're very vulnerable with your team, like you said. How do you keep like this level of professionalism, I guess? Like I guess there's this idea that well, don't be too personal or don't like there's got to be this like line or something. How do you kind of navigate that?
So it's making sure that you've got the respect. So the team, my team knows that again, I'm very vulnerable and we share a lot, but ultimately when a decision needs to be made, like they respect it and they'll carry it out. But what I like about it is that they do then have the comfort level to challenge me on a decision as well. And
Mhm.
because I've got that level of trust with them and respect from them, it's never unprofessionally challenged. It's like, okay, well, I mean, Craig, can we talk about this? Because I just really don't think that's the right decision. And that's what I want. I want my team to push back because I'm not right all the time. I mean, you ask my wife, I guarantee you she'll agree with that statement that I am not right all the time. So I need people to push me. I need people to challenge me And from every single aspect, every single department, I want to be challenged on everything, because then ultimately the right decision ends up being made. So my decision is not the right decision. I will potentially provide a starting point based on my opinion, but I want to hear other people's opinions. So the advantage of having those connections with the team, and having that vulnerability, they don't feel scared. It's a safe place for them to challenge me. So then ultimately I'm going to grow, because a lot of times those challenges will give me aha moments of, oh gosh, yeah, you know what, you're right. That's a terrible idea I just suggested there. What do you suggest? And pivot, and we'll try something else. Or there's a lot of times where it's okay, well, I understand what you're saying. However, this is why we're doing it this way. So we don't have to appease everybody all the time. We don't have to agree with everybody all the time, but we have to give clear direction and clear meaning as to why we're giving them the objectives, or the action items we're giving them to do. So there's never an unprofessional level there from that standpoint. And it just, I think by having those stories and having that vulnerability, it allows them to feel safe, again, to then challenge you back, which helps everybody, because ultimately at the end of the day, we want to provide a really good customer experience and have a really good employee experience as well. So that can only be achieved if everybody's involved. If it's being mandated from here and we've got no feedback from here, how do you know it's a good experience? You don't.
Yeah.
So and then people don't even bring up that it's not, because they think there's no point in saying anything because nobody listens. So then it just stays the same forever, and it just carries on.
Yeah. Well, and you hired all these people for like what they're going to bring to the table, and then telling them to sit down and shut up is, you just like, why did you do that? Why'd you go through that whole hiring process? You could have hired anybody.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So do you think that there's any like cliches or like things that you should avoid when you're trying to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the storytelling, I think that's inappropriate storytelling. I worked in private yachts for 10 years, and I don't share those stories with the majority of my team. But there's certainly, it's really keeping it professional and keeping it relevant. I think that is the key. It is, if you're going to tell a story, and if you're going to be emotional about that story, it's got to be relevant to whatever the situation is at that time. To just share stories, like, you're not going in to just chit chat and tell funny stories. That's not providing any value. But I do believe that sharing stories about yourself, whether it's successes or failures, to help empower your team to act on decisions they think that is right or wrong, I think it really helps. So I would just avoid the unprofessional stories, certainly deep personal stories that are not relevant, and focus more on stories. And those stories can, again, be very personal, but only if it's relevant to the situation at hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been really trying like to add more storytelling to my marketing online, and trying to connect like LinkedIn, and I heard a good thing. It was like, just make sure that the stories that you tell are reflective rather than reactive. So it's telling something that you've learned from and is in the past, rather than I'm going through this right now and it's really emotional. That was good for me, because I can definitely go into the like emotional storytelling area, but it can be a little much.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I was talking about, and we touched on this earlier on before we started recording, but in regards to LinkedIn posts and social media posts, all of the posts, and I need to start posting more, I really do, but all of the posts I do, if you look through my LinkedIn, my personal posts, they're all professional posts, but they're all tied to something personal. Almost every single one. All of my highest reacted posts, like the 3,000, 4,000 actions, they're all emotional posts. It's whether it's something I've learned when I've been with my children, or it's something I've learned from myself, from a trip I've been on. Just I really just trying, when I'm in the only in a moment at that time, I would say, and it's an emotional from a positive standpoint. So I agree with what you're saying, but I think you can be reactive if it's positive. So if you're in this like moment in your life, it's like, this is phenomenal. This is like a moment that I just never going to forget. Like, I think that's safe to share. I mean, that's you being vulnerable and like sharing. Again, it's not a failure. It's like, you guys need to get this. So I did this and I've achieved this, and it's that moment in time. So I think that's very powerful. But a lot of mine, again, are, I used to be this way, I changed this, and now this is what happened. But it's always me. It's always pictures of me. It's always videos of me. And again, you see the majority of new consultants, will be out there and they'll put LinkedIn posts and Facebook posts, and it's all pictures of the homes and pictures of the interior of the homes. And I'm just really trying to, like, again, with my team, like, this is my big push now is actually, let's make it about you. I want you to have a brand. I want you to be like who you are. I want people to, you walk into a room in a realtor association a meeting and people are like, how do I know that person? Oh, that's right. And then they connect it to the company and the floor plan and the community. I had somebody, a friend, he owns a company and he just hired somebody and they told me who it was. And I was like, oh, I know him. He works for this company in this location. And they're like, how do you? And it was all from LinkedIn. I'd never met them. But because of their social media posts and through our mutual connections, I knew who he was straight away. And that's what I want for, I think, so but from a social media standpoint, I think that's a huge opening for the majority of sales consultants is to start having their team do that, is to own themselves on camera, create a brand. What do you represent? Yes, of course, you represent your company, but what do you represent? What are your values? Like, because that's going to connect you to a completely different audience that's going to start following you. And then guess what? They're like-minded people that are going to know who you are, and they're going to come in and they're going to have share stories with you and you're going to have connections with them. And then especially with real estate agents, you know what, if you have friends with real estate agents and you become the first person they call if they have a client, do you have something like this? Yes, I do. Great. You can pick up sales every single month just by having 10 or 15 core real estate agents that are loyal to you. And you do that by putting yourself out there in social media, creating followings of like-minded people that are going to connect with you and become friends with you because of your values, not because you're trying to sell a home and not because of the company you work for. So that's a big push I'm really going to try and work on here in the next 3-6 months with my team is let's get our faces on camera. Let's become people. Let's become an identity that people can recognize and know that that identity works for this company. So I think that's a huge opportunity for a lot of consultants.
Could not agree more. I have been like screaming this into the void for so long. Yes, like all the home builders' homes are beautiful, but like you've got the same granite countertops, you've got the same flooring. You can only design a kitchen so many ways. You know, it's like you've got to add something there, and people want to connect with people. And as an introvert, it has been so wonderful for me, like building a personal brand online, because people come up to me and I've completely kind of skipped the like awkward, like, how's the weather? Where are you from? Conversation, because like they come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, like I saw your daughter does dance. And, you know, I did a LinkedIn post about my daughter and her dance recital. And it was like, we've already got a connection now. We can already start talking. And it's like instantly better. Like I am not a big fan of the very superficial, let's talk about the weather conversations. And it's so cool to just be able to skip right over that.
You can literally become friends with people without knowing them just by sharing their stories.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful thing that I feel like so many people are missing out on. And I was I was talking with another guest for the podcast, and we were talking about personal brands and how, you know, some companies don't necessarily promote you having your own personal brand, or people don't know how to start it. And it's like this kind of forgotten thing, but I feel like you have it already there. It's just you have to show up and you just have to talk about those experiences, and it just builds itself.
Yeah. Social media is such like a analysis paralysis. Like people want it to be perfect. I mean, if they're going to be on camera, they'll spend weeks trying to craft this most amazing, perfect like video. And then at that point, like the emotion's gone at that point because it's become then a chore. And that's not what the most successful posts, in my opinion, are. They are these emotional posts, these things that tie into people's previous emotions they've gone through, and that's how it connects with you. I mean, it's just you need to, again, this is vulnerability. You just need to be vulnerable. You got to put it out there, and guess what? Your first one might suck, probably will suck, but it gets better. I promise you, people, it gets better. But it's just consistency, it's failing and trying new things and seeing the feedback you get and having trusted friends. I mean, a big thing about this as well is you are who you surround yourself with. So if you want to be successful, surround yourself with successful people. I mean, that's just the way you need to be in life. So have that trusted group of people that will give you candid feedback in your posts. And you know what? That sucked, bud. Man, I'm telling you, you need to change that right now. It's like, okay, thank you. You need to have those people that can give you that candid feedback, and then you grow from that feedback. And most of it's going to be positive because, I mean, people are like, especially if you're doing an emotional thing, if you're doing storytelling that's emotional, it doesn't matter because people just appreciate the fact that you've been vulnerable and shared a story. So they're not looking at your spelling, they're not looking at what you've typed, and they're really looking at the overall vision of what you've tried to deliver to the audience, as opposed to nitpicking. Oh, that lighting was terrible in that picture. I mean, come on, that's not what we're looking at in these things. Yeah, just focusing on the person.
Yeah. Well, I think if you don't look back at your past social media posts and cringe a little bit, like there's something wrong. Like you either haven't grown or, it was so scripted that like you're just not yourself. Like oh gosh, there's so many things like that I posted that I'm just like, I thought that was good at one time. Even like design work, I'll be like, oh my gosh, someone paid me to make that logo. And like, why? So it's like that's just part of growing, and that's a good thing.
100%, 100%.
So if you were to tell our listeners right now, like one thing that would just kind of make this mindset shift for them, or like just kind of your greatest advice, your one thing, what would it be?
I would say lean into the moment every single time, and recognize every experience you're going through, and don't just discount it, good or bad. And I'll give you a story. So I was with my daughter the other day, and her room was a disaster. I'm talking like a disaster. It was a mess. Her bathroom was a mess, and I'm getting frustrated. And she's she just couldn't get it. Just you don't understand. Your room has to be tidy. This is so like disrespectful to like your sister who lives next door, like who's in the adjoining room. The bathrooms are a disaster, blah, blah, blah. And her comment was, "Well, your bathroom's a mess." And I'm like, "Oh," and like I don't really know where to go from here. And of course it's like, yes, but I work all day. You know what I mean? So it's just like end of story. You know what I mean? It was the wrong thing to do. And but I did actually. I swear I came back. I was like, you know what? You have a very fair point. I do need to do a better job cleaning my bathroom. But what I need for you to do is to make sure your bathroom's clean as well, and I'll do a better job as well. And it's it's those moments there that like you take back to work, or at work and you take home. Like another one that was just this was just 2 days ago. My daughter's. I mean, I've got a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I swear, like it's like World War II every single time when the two of them get together. They're screaming at each other, and they were like shouting at each other. And I mean, I screamed as loud as I could. I was like, "Stop shouting at each other!" And then I turned around and I was like, "Well, gee, that was effective. To get them to stop shouting, I've shouted at them." And I was like, I'm just thinking, like, if I'd been at work, like, and I had blown up on one of my employees, guess what? I'm getting an HR call. Like
Yeah.
you don't do that at work. Like, so why is it okay for me to do it at home? And these are so I'm always thinking, like, how do you tie work experience and personal experiences and make them like one? And that was a perfect example. That HR was perfect. Like I was shouting, and I was like, if I did that at work, I'd get fired. So why is it okay for me to not do it to employees, but I can do it to my children? That's insane. And
Mhm.
now, of course, I mean we're parents. I mean you do get irate and you do that, but I will hand on heart say I do an amazing job now of really quickly catching myself and being calm and talking through it and say I apologize for shouting. This is why I need you to do it. And again, the growth there for me as a parent has been huge, but that's all from having that self-awareness of thinking I wouldn't do this at work. It's not okay to do it at home, and vice versa. I mean, if you're like, I hold my sales consultants accountable to having certain standards, and I expect myself to have those same standards. But at home, like my daughter's room has to be clean, but mine doesn't. I mean, come on, that's just not fair. So
Yeah.
anywhere you are, any experience you're in, really be aware of it, lean into it, and think how that can help grow you in either area of your life. And then there's stories from there. And then again, if you're in this mindset of always trying to promote yourself and have a brand, that's work and at home. So every experience again is part of your brand, it's part of who you are, and sharing both and aligning both again. My brand's a little bit different because mine is really that culture and that work-life balance as well. So that really is my online brand. So I'm always
Mhm.
looking for this. But with everybody else, it's like when storytelling is so emotional and it is so personal, you have to not discount the times that you're in a story and you're in a moment, like lean into them and then try and use them to not only grow, but if we're talking about social media and selling, then lean into it in social media and selling as well. Use your vulnerability and be willing to share.
Yeah. Such good advice. We're all humans first, right? And I think we've tried to like kind of segment everything, and it's just you're doing so much work. Like just be you, a human.
100%, 100%.
So if any of our listeners want to reach out with you, connect with you, where would the best place be to do that?
LinkedIn, 100%. I mean, that's where I spend the majority of my time when I'm on social media is on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people. Anybody wants to connect, anybody wants to reach out and ask other questions or advice or anything at all, or offer me advice. Please give me some advice. And I would love to do that. I say I really lean into LinkedIn. I'm very fortunate in this side that again I'm really in this management role now, and so much of my time is now spent with trying to help people as opposed to just selling homes. I really want to lean into more on that as well as and help my team sell homes and use social media being me as an instrument to help them sell homes. And that's another big thing I'm trying to lean into over the next 6 months. But certainly being able to be on there and just share stories that I feel will hopefully help other people and find emotional connections with them. So that's where I've really leaned into LinkedIn, and it's just a great place for me to connect.
Yeah. Well, I'll put your link down in the description box so everyone can click directly there. Thank you so much for this conversation. This has been amazing. And I just really appreciate your time. I know you are a busy man. So thank you for coming here to share with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. It's great to see you. I look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everybody. We'll come back again next week for our next episode. Drop us a line and go check out Craig on LinkedIn, and I will see you in our next episode. Bye,
Cheers.
everybody.